right, let us prepare ourselves. If you put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now close your arms and open your arms up. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with is that there is a power for good in this universe, and you can use it anytime, all the time, for whatever you want. It's an unlimited power, and it's never been withheld from you and never will be withheld from you because you haven't used it wisely in the past. This power for good can restore marriages, can restore self-confidence, can restore physical health, can restore your savings account, can restore America's political system back to a civil discourse where different sides have ideas and hammer them out. This power for good can restore estranged relationships with family and with friends. This power for good in the universe can perform what might feel to us like a miracle, but for God, it's all in a day's work. But for most of us, we're holding on too tight to the physical realm. Reports of COVID are scaring the hell out of us. We're holding on to the idea that systemic racism that's killing spirits and body of people of color will never end. Some of us are holding on to exhaustion and frustration of trying to help our kids learn through remote learning. Or maybe you have something or some things wrong with your body. We need a miracle, and sooner than later, please, for any of those things. So today, I want to increase our chances by sharing with you some wisdom from a biblical scholar who's also a biker and a backpacker. One day, while he was backpacking, he reached the Continental Divide, and he boiled some water for his dinner. Because you know those backpackers, they boil water, they put a little bag, never mind. Okay, so he was boiling his water for his dinner, and he noticed that as the water actively boiled, it would hop down one side of the pot, and on the left, it would roll down into one side of the continent and into the Atlantic. And on the right, it would hop down the right, and on the other side, roll into the Pacific. Although it's difficult to believe that the difference of a fraction of an inch at the point of origin can eventually result in the difference of reaching an entire ocean, that's how the cause and effect works. Difference in one step, the difference in one choice, the difference in one word, one little thought from the point of origin can make a difference as to how it flows flowing downstream and amplifying our intent. We are balanced on our own continental divide. Every day, we make choices. On the one side, lack and limitation. On the other side, an ocean of potentiality. We're balanced. The hiker and the biblical scholar is Michael Abrams. And what he did was to study and uncover 12 conditions that were present in the miracle of the loaves and fishes performed by Jesus. Now, even if you didn't grow up Christian, you've heard of the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Jesus was giving a lecture. He went on a little too long. People got hungry. They needed to be fed, and he fed them. It is the only one of his miracles that is located in all 4 of the Gospels. And I'm going to take a couple of weeks, this week and the week after next, to examine each of these 12 conditions so that we might use them in our lives today. The first condition that he found in this miracle is the miracle that actually happened before, is the condition that happened before the lecture started. And that's the condition of emptiness. Jesus went alone into the desert. We have to empty ourselves, you and I, both internally and externally. Usually, when we invite a miracle into our lives are a mess. And we think we need a miracle and we need it right now. In this case, Jesus had just learned that his beloved friend and cousin, John the Baptist was beheaded. Now look, Jesus was a human being. He must have been full of sadness, just like you and I would be full of sadness. He must have been full of rage, just like you and I get full of rage sometimes. He must have been full of revenge, just like you and I want revenge sometimes. Jesus was showing us by his actions, as he always did. It's time to get away. My emotions are too high. It's time to get off by myself and empty myself of my emotions before they get out of hand. Not a time to react, but a time to step back, a time to be still. First, we remove ourselves from anything or anyone external that might mess up our miracle field. Jesus went into the desert because there were no family members there. There were no needy disciples there. There were no people of a political party there. There were no kids there. He went there because he needed to take responsibility for creating an environment that would have no distractions. Nothing could pop up unexpectedly and get in the way of what it was that he wanted to do, which was to create an atmosphere of wild and unheard of manifestation. That's our work. That's the work we have to do on the outer. Get away, withdraw. Your desert might be a drive or a walk in the woods or going outside and telling your kids and your partners, stay in the house. I need a little time by myself. But removing yourself is only the beginning. That's the outer work of emptying ourselves. The inner work of emptying ourselves is where we really need to focus. We need to release any hostages in our life that we've taken to make ourselves feel better. All those people whose fault you think it is that caused you to have the life you're leading right now, you got to let go of them. All those people who you think robbed you of a childhood, you've got to release them. It's part of the emptiness requirement. Now, I don't mean that you have to allow them to be near you. It means you have to remove them just from your mind. Uncle Bert, you're a carpetbagger, so run along now. Whatever you did to me, get out of here now. I want to be available for the miracles in my life, and you're taking up valuable miracle room. I'm emptying you. People sometimes ask me if they need to be forgiving of somebody to release them. And the answer is no, you don't. But it would be much easier and much quicker if you do. The second condition that was present in the miracle of the loaves of fishes is the condition of alignment with compassion. The first condition is emptiness. We create a vacuum for the power to fill. And in the second condition, we align ourselves with compassion and begin to see the world differently than we've ever seen it before. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, teaches that God is love. We're aligning ourselves with our love that enables us to find oneness with everyone around us. Scripture says Jesus came from the desert place, that place of full potential, that place in which he was empty of anything but was naturally his and yours, and that is love. And from that place of love, he began to see the multitude who needed healing, and he began to walk and heal among the sick. You and I need to be so anchored in compassion that we can walk about this country and begin healing it with compassion. Remember, we're not activating these 12 conditions of a miracle to get a Boy Scout badge. And we're not our recognition from a God in the sky, because there is no God in the sky. We're activating these conditions to allow the miracle to show up through us. Consciously aligning ourselves with compassion is a signal to spirit. It's a signal to the universe that we're ready for this power to good to come into our lives. Hold yourself accountable this week. See what your compassionate level is. And I'm going to give you a hint. If you spend a little time, and I mean even a little time every morning, just contemplating, setting an intention for compassion that day, it'll be easier, much easier. Remember, these are practices. When we're in a state of compassion, we let go of the separation. We let go of us and them. We let go of those phrases like, if you hadn't, or when you did. We let go of all that stuff. We begin to put other people's actions where they belong, which is not about us. You know, several years ago, I went to a Silmar, and I heard a speaker say that whenever she was in a difficult conversation with somebody maybe was attacking her or disagreeing with her, or it was just a difficult conversation, she said she always held up a sign in her mind. And on one sign, the sign said this, "Tell me more." Because oftentimes we get into these scrapes with people because we don't really know what they're saying. And half the time they may not either. But if we're curious, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. If we can teach ourselves to do that, we can begin to dismantle some of the separation. So that's the front of the sign, tell me more. The other side, part of the sign, this has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with me. If we could use that little trick every time, and even, you know what, I see these fights going on in Facebook now. Instead of just reacting to them, maybe what we should say is, tell me more. And remember, it has nothing to do with you. Aligning with compassion allows you to improve your receptivity by accomplishing what our founder Ernest Holmes calls calm expectancy. Miracles don't happen to hand-wringers. They happen to people who have developed calm expectancy. So the first condition is emptiness. The second is aligning with compassion. And the third condition is called ask. Now this can get a little confusing when we use the usual definition of ask, which is to make a request and put a question mark on the end and wait for an answer. Nowhere in any of four of the Gospels of this miracle of the loaves and fishes is there a statement with a question mark at the end. Jesus understood there was no God in the sky, and that the energy for good is not in the business of responding to questions. It's in the business of responding to affirmations. The purpose of the condition called ask is not about God giving you more miracles at all. It's about your ability to receive the ones that have already been given to you. The purpose is to create a different consciousness than you have right now. It's a clarifying moment. It's a moment that says, I'm going to take responsibility for myself. Sometimes we don't ask because we're waiting for somebody else to figure out what it is that we want and give it to us without our ever asking. How many beloveds who are watching this morning want their partners to just give them what they want without asking and think that's a sign of love? Another reason we don't ask is because we're not sure what we want. Asking requires us to spend a minute to figuring out what to ask for. I'm not talking about how, but what. The disciples looked at the situation. It was getting on toward dinner. They could hear people's stomachs growling, and they were far away from any food or any stores. They stated in an affirmation to Jesus, these folks need to eat. And then they made a mistake. They went on to tell Jesus how it could be done. Why don't you send us to town? Jesus said, in effect, don't waste your time on how. Stick with what. What if we, in our conversations with God, in our conversations with Allah, Elohim, the sacred grandmother tree, that energy, what if we operated under the acronym for ASK? Always seek knowingly. Ask. Always seek knowingly. Trusting that God's done God's job. In the four Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they say to ask more than 50 times, even on one issue. And you know what? I complain after I give 3 affirmation statements and it's not made manifest. 50 times or more. The fourth condition of the miracle that I'm going to do today, the last one, is called maximize. which is actually encoded in the verse dealing with lunch for men. Now look, I've said this before. Those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that 5,000 men were there and their wives or their girlfriends or their sisters. We don't know how many women were there. So I'm going to start saying that was probably 8,000 people. 8,000 people that he had to create lunch for. He did not create the loaves. He did not create the fishes out of thin air. Lunch did not appear from nothing. Rather, he fed the crowd. He was expanding his existing supply. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of 5,000 hungry men and 3,000 or 4,000 hungry women, and all you can scrape up is 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. What would you be thinking? We're in a jam. We need to ask for help. We're presented with something we think is too puny. What are we going to do with these 2 fish and 5 loaves? Too puny to actually help. What we put our attention to grows. So when we put our attention to puny, we are growing lack. When we use all of the resources at hand and we milk every bit of use out of those puny resources, we begin to grow solution. It's the wisdom of Hanukkah. They had a candle with enough oil for 1 night, but they needed 8. They did it anyway. They didn't cry out. They didn't whine. They didn't say it's not enough. They expanded their existing supply. But we have to do this consistently. When we do 10% of the time, we're going to get a 10% miracle. If I were ever forced to make a mistake, I think we make in manifesting our desires, maximizing would be at the top of the list. First, we don't even know what it is we have to maximize. How many of us know exactly what's in your closet? Exactly what's in your kitchen? Exactly what's in your garages? We get complacent about what we have, and we take it for granted. You can't maximize what you don't know about. Our supply exists, but we're not aware of it. Look at your talents, your health, your knowledge, and all your other intangible resources. Have you maximized the use of these profound gifts? The greatest gift you have is love. Maximize it. Give it freely, especially to those with whom you're having an estrangement. Use today, this day, the start of a new season, to reach out to somebody with whom you're estranged. Reach out to them and see what happens. Are there people in your life who are feeling like can never let back in? You don't want that. Maybe some of them shouldn't be. I tell this story at church frequently, but it's a story that I love, and it reminds me to keep reaching out. It's the story of Paco. Paco and his father had a disagreement. I don't know what it was about. And they were estranged for years. And Paco's dad realized that he was coming toward the end of his life, and he wanted to end it. So it was in Mexico City. He put an ad in the Mexico City Times, and it said this: Paco, I'm sorry. I want to see you. Please forgive me. Meet me in the square on such and such a street at 5 o'clock on Saturday night. Well, on Saturday night at 5 o'clock, Paco's dad went to the square, and what he found were dozens of Pacos, hoping that it was their dad who put that ad in the paper. Let's use today, Labor Day weekend, to reach out to somebody who might feel estranged from you, because we are all one. There is no separation. Let us take this message into prayer. There's only one power. It's the power of love, and it's running through me and through you and through everybody. Some people have it covered up with hurt, with hate. with misinformation. But at their essence, if we can peel it back, it's just love. I give thanks for having the wisdom to look for that love in everybody today. Everybody. Nobody gets left out. Nobody from any political party gets left out. I'm going to look for the love. Might not agree with you. Probably won't vote for you. But I'm going to look for your love because I know it's there. I give thanks to the Great One for always saying yes. And so it is. Let us